I knew my father would be released from jail in about 2 years, but I had surrounded myself with enough support and security that he wouldn't dare approach me again. Finally, I had found peace, a tranquility I hoped to carry with me for the rest of my life. After that horrifying incident, life slowly began to regain its normalcy. About a year later, I found myself immersed in the everyday routines. 6 months after the incident, I met someone special through a dating app, and we grew deeply attached to each other. My business prospered, and everything seemed to fall into place. The police station where my father was incarcerated repeatedly called, urging me to talk to him, to accept his apologies. I paid no heed. After all he had done, second chances weren't something he deserved. Fast forward 2 years, and I found myself getting married to the same wonderful man I had met on the dating platform. My fiancé was everything I had ever wanted. He knew about my past, supported me in every decision, and made it his mission to ensure my happiness and comfort. During the wedding, in the absence of a father to walk me down the aisle, my best friend's father, the man who had welcomed me into their family, did the honor. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude toward all the incredible people in my life. They had helped me heal and move forward. However, as the celebration continued, we were interrupted by a commotion at the main entrance. Rushing there, I discovered a man attempting to force his way into the wedding uninvited. I instantly recognized him. He was my father. His yelling and curses sent shivers down my spine. When his eyes met mine, he uttered, "My sweet daughter, I wanted to meet you for so long. Come to your father." His words felt like a nightmare, and before I knew it, everything went black and I lost consciousness. Upon waking, my husband was by my side, reassuring me that my father had been taken to a mental hospital. He wasn't mentally well and had been diagnosed with several issues. My husband promised that I would never have to see him again, even suggesting we could relocate if it made me feel safer. The relief I felt at the prospect of never seeing my father again was indescribable. My husband and I moved, and together we ran our businesses. Besides occasional short trips, we mostly worked from home. I had spent my life searching for peace, and finally, I had found it with my new family. Having faced similar challenges with difficult parents, I understand the struggles you've endured. You were never the one at fault in this situation. I hope you always find peace and happiness. Best of luck. Your father's actions were despicable. He deserves to be in jail indefinitely. Who treats their children this way? I'm so glad you've escaped that nightmare, and your father is the only one to blame. Wishing you endless peace and love. Now let's dive into the second story. I am a 25-year-old woman who owns a beautiful 4-bedroom house. I purchased my house when I was 23. After allowing my business partner to take our shared assets in exchange for $600,000. We co-owned several properties, having made our first purchase together when we were 20 and 21 during our dating days. Even though our romantic relationship didn't work out, we remained business partners. Shortly after my 23rd birthday, I closed the deal on my house. At that time, I was only working part-time while managing our properties. Starting with just a few belongings from my old apartment, my new home remained mostly empty for months. My dream was always to become a pastry chef, and a local community college offered a program that allowed you to obtain a certificate for free with 16 weeks of classes. That's where I met my fiancé, James, a 27-year-old chef at a high-end restaurant. We connected instantly, and he became an integral part of my life, even helping me set up my bakery. James proposed to me in Jamaica on August 8, 2022. When we returned home, I moved in with him. I had spent months perfecting recipes in my kitchen, which I meticulously designed to my liking. I often put my phone on Do Not Disturb mode to eliminate distractions. Although James found this upsetting, I stuck to my schedule and rarely deviated from it. About a week ago, I missed several calls from James because my phone was on DND and he couldn't reach me. He suggested having a key to my place for emergencies, but I declined, explaining that I needed time to adjust to living with someone. Recently, I noticed he had a spare key in his car, and I immediately changed the locks with my brother's help. During dinner last night, I confronted James about finding the key. I assured him it was useless now that I had changed the locks. We argued, and we haven't spoken since. Am I being unreasonable? My father cast me out of our home, leaving me to struggle for 4 long years, unjustly blaming me for money stolen from our house. Now he's back, claiming he wants to meet and has an apology to offer along with an enticing proposition. I couldn't help but laugh in his face. I've never liked my father. His past actions are the root cause. Sure, parents scold their children for mistakes, but my father cursed my very existence. After my mother's death, he spiraled into madness, and being his only child, I bore the brunt of his erratic behavior until I turned 18. I was terrified of him. One night, he burst into the living room, accusing me of theft, grabbing me by my hair and throwing me aside. I wept as he hurled insults, insisting I'd stolen from him. I pleaded my innocence, but he wouldn't listen. The argument escalated until he demanded I leave. When I protested, he slapped me once more and cast me out with nothing. No food, water, clothes. I found refuge at my friend's house, whose parents welcomed me with open arms. They became my new family, offering support and shelter. Despite their advice, I didn't report the abuse. Some twisted part of me didn't want to hurt him further. Looking back, I realized I should have taken that step. Now, 4 years later, I'm a successful businesswoman heading a security company. I found myself face to face with my father, who, unbeknownst to him, was about to discover my achievements. He apologized, attributing his actions to his struggle with my mother's death, professing his love and desire for my happiness. I listened silently, waiting for the catch. His proposition came: a job and a share in his small manufacturing company, assuming I was jobless and struggling. I couldn't contain my laughter. In between my fits of laughter, I shared my success story, revealing my thriving business empire. His dumbfounded expression was priceless. As I stood to leave, I warned him never to contact me again, making it clear I wanted him out of my life for good. As I walked away, a smile crept across my face. It was cathartic to release all that pent-up frustration. That man had never truly been a father to me, so finally feeling happy was a welcome change. But, at times, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd been too harsh on him. Life continued as usual after that peculiar meeting. Then, one day, my father called, his voice tinged with desperation. He begged me to take him in, shedding tears and repeating his apologies. He admitted he shouldn't have treated me so poorly and that I deserved better. His transparent attempt to get a piece of my success wasn't lost on me, so I hung up the call without a second thought. Weeks later, my company had an opening for gatekeepers. I wasn't personally involved in the hiring process, so I didn't pay much attention to it. But as fate would have it, one day while entering the premises, I saw my father working as one of the gatekeepers. My mood soared, knowing he had ulterior motives, but I decided to let it be, as long as he didn't cause any trouble. Late one evening, I was leaving the office building when I noticed him waiting at the door. I initially ignored him, walking toward my car. However, he called out to me with a sad and apologetic expression. He tried to apologize again, but when I declined, he grew visibly angry. He reminded me of the past, the way he used to hit me, and accused me of having the audacity to speak to him this way. I was horrified. Childhood memories flooded back, leaving me frozen. Before I knew it, he was charging toward me, striking me once more. I screamed at the top of my lungs, and some of the security guards rushed to my aid. I shot him a withering look and promptly informed him that he was fired, promising to report the incident to the police. Given my public standing, the police took my complaint seriously, resulting in his imprisonment for about 2 years and hefty fines. I also disclosed the childhood violence to the police, which only exacerbated his punishment. His face haunted my worst nightmares. Just when I thought I had escaped my traumatic past, this incident triggered a flood of memories. I sought therapy to deal with the aftermath of the attack, but therapy sessions helped me cope with panic attacks and anxiety. From that day on, I took personal charge of scrutinizing the profiles of all new recruits in the security department. While this incident had reignited my fears, I did everything in my power to regain a semblance of reassurance. A month after the ordeal, I could sense a slow but steady improvement in myself. The therapy sessions continued, and I began to feel better. Well, it's clear that your fiancé needs to respect your boundaries. However, there seems to be a deeper issue here. If you don't trust him enough to allow him into your safe space, perhaps it's a sign that you both need to reevaluate your relationship. It's crucial to feel comfortable living together, especially if you're planning a future together. Considering your age and the relatively short time you've known each other, it might be a good idea to have an open and honest conversation. Address your feelings, why you feel that way, and discuss how you both can move forward as a couple. Be prepared for him to have his own opinions and emotions about the situation. It appears that the issue here goes beyond just a house key. Everyone sucks here, estate. He shouldn't have made the key without your permission, and you clearly communicated that he didn't have your approval. However, considering you're engaged and living together, it raises concerns about trust in your relationship. Why wouldn't you trust him with a key to your house, especially when he asked for it due to legitimate situations where his lack of access caused problems? Your relationship seems imbalanced, and if this continues, it might soon be one-sided. You might be the one at fault here. Living together and being engaged should signify a level of trust that seems to be lacking in this situation. Do you genuinely believe your engagement will survive after such a significant fight? By the way, if you are enjoying this video and want to be an awesome person, consider hitting the like button. Alternatively, you could go to their house and leave them the last piece of cheesecake. Okay, let's move on to the next story. I'm a 20-year-old sharing a house with 4 roommates, and I had an issue with one of them, Jane, who is a 29-year-old immigrant that moved to our country about 4 years ago for better job opportunities. Jane joined us around 3 months ago to fill in for a previous roommate who left after her lease expired. Jane and I never had any major clashes until this particular problem arose. Jane's family still lives in her native country, which is in a different time zone. She frequently FaceTimes with them when it's late at night for us, usually around 2 or 3 a.m. While she doesn't do this every night, it occurs often enough to be bothersome, around 4 times a week. What's especially irksome is that she engages in these calls in the kitchen or living room, and her conversations with her family are excessively loud. I've spoken to Jane about this issue, suggesting that she be more considerate about the noise and perhaps use headphones. However, she flatly refused, claiming that headphones ruined the experience. I also proposed that she FaceTime during the day, but she argued that her family would be asleep at that time. I asked her to please be quieter because her FaceTiming sessions with her family were waking me up, and I had to get up early for work. While she seemed to understand, she didn't show much enthusiasm for fixing the problem and kept changing the subject. Earlier this week, I had a Zoom interview for an exciting internship that could significantly impact my career. I informed my roommates about it a week in advance to ensure a quiet house for my interview. However, the night before the interview, around midnight, Jane was loudly FaceTiming her family in the living room. I woke up and was clearly upset about it. I asked Jane to keep it down, and she assured me she was just saying goodbye to them. They quieted down for about 10 minutes, but then I could hear them yelling again. I approached Jane again, stressed the importance of my early morning interview, and asked her to please keep it down. She promised she would and apologized. However, around 1 a.m., I was once again awakened by Jane and her family. At this point, I had had enough. I went downstairs and yelled at Jane, telling her to be quiet because some of us were trying to sleep. Her family ended the call when they heard me, and Jane went to her room crying, refusing to talk to me. She said she missed her family and expected more empathy from me. My other roommate sided with Jane, saying I was too harsh. I'm feeling conflicted. I feel guilty for yelling at her, but I'm incredibly frustrated with her for being so disruptive. Not the jerk. It's unacceptable for her to call and wake her family up, yet it's perfectly fine for her to shriek at 1 or 3 a.m. and disturb her roommates. Can't she see the hypocrisy in her behavior? Her statement about headphones ruining the experience was baffling. How can wearing headphones ruin the experience? It's a completely reasonable request, and her refusal makes no sense at all. All right, that wraps up today's stories. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. If you have your own story, feel free to email it to us. The email address is in the description. Alright, until next time.